Consistency is doing what you said you would do long after the feeling to do it is gone. Most people do not fail because they lack ability. They fail because their effort changes with their mood. They work hard when they feel inspired, slow down when life gets difficult, and stop when the results take longer than expected. That pattern quietly controls their future. Force yourself to be consistent, and you change the standard you live by. You stop asking whether you feel ready. You start asking what needs to be done today. What would happen if you kept your promises when nobody watched? What could change if you finished the work after boredom appeared? How much stronger would your confidence become if you returned quickly after missing several days? This audiobook, Force Yourself to Be Consistent, will show you how to build that kind of discipline through simple daily actions. You will learn how to control excuses, follow routines without motivation, handle difficult days, restart after failure, and keep working when comfort tells you to stop. Stay until the end, because consistency is not built during perfect days. It is built during ordinary moments when you choose to continue. Start there. Chapter 1. Decide what you will do every day. Consistency becomes much easier when your daily actions are decided before your emotions start making decisions for you. A person who knows exactly what must be done each day spends less time arguing with themselves and more time doing the work. Your results are strongly affected by what you repeatedly do after the excitement of a new goal disappears. The real work begins on ordinary mornings when the room is quiet and you have no strong desire to begin. Most people do not have a clear problem with effort. They have a problem with unclear daily decisions. They say they want to read more but never decide how many pages they will read. They want to exercise but never choose the exact time. They want to learn a skill but leave the amount of practice undefined. They want to save money but do not decide what spending will be reduced. A vague goal gives your mind too much freedom to delay. A clear daily action removes much of that debate. Take a simple example. Saying that you want to become healthier sounds positive, but it does not tell you what to do at 7 in the morning. Saying that you will walk for 20 minutes after breakfast gives you a real action. You know what the action is. You know when it begins. You know when it ends. You do not need to create a new decision every morning. That small difference can change your behavior because consistency grows from clear decisions repeated under normal conditions. There is another important lesson here. You should decide what you will do every day before deciding how much you feel like doing it. Feelings change quickly. Your standard should not change at the same speed. One morning you may wake up with energy and feel ready to work for 2 hours. Another morning you may feel tired and distracted. Your daily commitment needs a minimum level that remains possible even on a difficult day. This gives you a reliable starting point instead of allowing your mood to control the entire day. Choose one important action for your personal growth and make it specific. Do not write that you will work harder. Write that you will study for 30 minutes at 8 in the evening. Do not write that you will become more disciplined. Write that you will prepare tomorrow's work before going to sleep. Do not write that you will improve your communication. Write that you will spend 15 minutes reading and practicing one communication skill each day. The clearer the behavior becomes, the easier it is to know whether you actually did it. A useful daily decision contains 3 simple details. It has an action. It has a time. It has a minimum amount. This creates a basic agreement with yourself. For example, I will write for 30 minutes at 9 in the morning. I will read 10 pages before bed. I will exercise for 20 minutes after work. I will practice English for 15 minutes after dinner. These decisions are simple enough to remember and specific enough to measure. Do not underestimate the value of a minimum standard. Many people make consistency difficult because they create rules that only work on their best days. They decide to exercise for 90 minutes every day. They plan to read 50 pages every night. They promise to work for 5 hours without interruption. These plans can feel exciting at the beginning. They can also become difficult to maintain once normal responsibilities appear. A smaller daily standard can be more useful because it survives ordinary problems. This does not mean you should lower your ambition. It means you should separate your minimum from your maximum. Your minimum is what you protect every day. Your maximum is what you do when you have extra time and energy. You might decide that your minimum is 20 minutes of study. On a good day, you may study for 2 hours. On a difficult day, you still complete 20 minutes. This approach teaches your mind that difficult days may change the amount of work, but they do not automatically cancel the commitment. That distinction matters because missing one day can become psychologically expensive. A person misses Monday and tells themselves they will restart Tuesday. Tuesday becomes busy. Wednesday feels less important because the routine has already been interrupted. Soon the person starts identifying as someone who cannot stay consistent. The problem was not one missed session. The problem was allowing one missed session to become permission for more missed sessions. Create a rule for imperfect days before imperfect days arrive. Your rule might be simple: never miss twice. Another useful rule is to complete the smallest acceptable version of the task. You planned to exercise for 30 minutes, but your day became crowded. Complete 10 minutes. You plan to read 20 pages, but you are exhausted. Read 5 pages. You plan to write 1,000 words, but your concentration is poor. Write 200 useful words. The purpose is not to pretend that a small effort equals a full effort. The purpose is to protect the habit of showing up. There is a deeper psychological benefit to this approach. Every completed action gives you evidence about your own behavior. You stop relying on promises and start collecting proof. You tell yourself that you are going to study, and then you study. You say that you will wake up and work at a certain time, and then you do it. Each action makes the next decision easier because you have already shown yourself that your words can lead to behavior. Your identity is influenced by repeated evidence. You do not need to tell yourself every morning that you are disciplined. You need to behave in a way that gives you a reason to believe it. This is why the decision must be connected to action. Saying "I am consistent" has little value without a behavior that demonstrates consistency. Reading 10 pages every night gives you stronger evidence than repeating a positive statement about yourself. Pay attention to how you make decisions during the day. Many people make dozens of small choices that quietly consume their attention. They decide whether to work now or later. They decide whether to check their phone first. They decide whether to exercise before dinner or after dinner. They decide whether to start the important task or complete an easier task. Each decision requires some mental effort. You can reduce this unnecessary effort by deciding your important actions in advance. Prepare tomorrow before today ends. Take 5 minutes at night and write down the most important action for the next day. Choose the time, Choose the place. Choose the minimum amount. Put the materials you need where you can see them. Put the book on your desk. Prepare your workout clothes. Open the document you need for your work. Keep your notebook ready. These small preparations reduce the number of steps between waking up and beginning. The first few minutes matter more than people realize. A phone beside the bed creates an easy first action. You reach for it before your feet touch the floor. One notification leads to another. A short check becomes 20 minutes. Now your mind has already been pulled toward other people's priorities before you have touched your own. Your morning did not become difficult because you lacked discipline. You made the first decision without protecting the decision that mattered. Create a fixed starting point for your most important daily behavior. It could be your desk after breakfast. It could be the library after work. It could be your bedroom chair before sleeping. The location itself is not important. What matters is that the same place becomes connected with the same action. Over time, entering that place can reduce the amount of preparation required to begin. You should also know the difference between a daily priority and a daily wish. A wish is something you would like to accomplish when the day goes well. A priority is something you protect before less important activities receive your time. This distinction becomes obvious when your schedule becomes crowded. There may be messages waiting. There may be entertainment available. There may be household responsibilities. There may be unexpected work. Consistency requires you to decide which action deserves protection before the pressure arrives. Take your daily goal and place it into your actual schedule. Do not leave it floating somewhere in your mind. A task without a time often becomes a task for later. Later is an uncertain time. It can be pushed repeatedly because there is no clear moment when you are supposed to begin. A scheduled action has a stronger position. You can see where it belongs and what activity must move around it. This is especially important for people who believe they need motivation before starting. Motivation is useful but unreliable. It can help you begin a new project, but it is not a dependable daily system. Your schedule needs to work on days when motivation is high and on days when it is low. The goal is not to create a life where you always feel ready. The goal is to create a structure that tells you what to do even when you do not feel ready. There will be mornings when you do not want to exercise. There will be evenings when your book feels less interesting than your phone. There will be afternoons when difficult work feels uncomfortable. These moments are normal. They do not provide accurate information about whether the action is valuable. They only tell you how you feel at that moment. Your decision was made for a reason that existed before that feeling arrived. This is where forcing yourself can become useful. Forcing yourself does not mean treating yourself badly. It means refusing to let temporary discomfort make important decisions. You can acknowledge that you are tired and still complete the minimum. You can recognize that the work is difficult and still begin. You can admit that you would rather relax and still protect the commitment you made. Self-discipline becomes practical when you learn to separate discomfort from danger. A simple exercise can help you develop this skill. At the start of each day, write one sentence that identifies the action you will protect. Then write the smallest version of that action. For example, I will study mathematics for 30 minutes. My minimum is 10 focused minutes. This gives you a clear target and a backup standard. The important part is that the backup standard is still meaningful. Do not reduce the task to something so small that it becomes meaningless. At the end of the day, record only whether you completed the commitment. You do not need a complicated system. Put a mark on a calendar. Write the number of pages you read. Record the minutes you practiced. Write down whether you completed the planned workout. Measurement gives your behavior a visible record. You may discover that you were more consistent than you believed. You may also discover exactly where your routine keeps breaking. Use that information without attacking yourself. A missed day is data. It tells you something about the design of your routine. Maybe the time was unrealistic. Maybe the task was too large. Maybe another responsibility regularly interrupts that period. Maybe your phone creates too much distraction. Instead of saying, "I am lazy," ask what caused the behavior to stop. This question leads to useful changes. Personal growth becomes much faster when you study your behavior instead of insulting yourself. There is also a powerful lesson in deciding fewer things. You do not need 10 major commitments every morning. Too many commitments compete for the same limited attention. Choose a small number of behaviors that matter most. One action for your body, one action for your mind, one action for your most important work may be enough to create meaningful progress. Once these actions become stable, you can add more. Your daily decisions should support the person you want to become without making your present life impossible to manage. You have work, you have family, you have responsibilities. You have days when your energy is limited. A useful routine respects reality. It does not require you to pretend that every day has the same amount of time and energy. Look at your own day honestly. Identify the hour that disappears most often. Maybe it is the first hour after waking. Maybe it is late at night. Maybe it is the time after work when you sit down and start using your phone. Find the period that repeatedly produces delay. Then make one clear decision about that period. Replace one common distraction with one useful action. Do not try to redesign your entire life in one evening. Consistency is built through decisions that are clear enough to follow and reasonable enough to repeat. You do not need a perfect schedule. You need a schedule that tells you what matters and protects it from unnecessary negotiation. Decide the action. Decide the time. Decide the minimum. Prepare the environment. Record the result. Adjust the system when reality shows you a problem. Then do it again tomorrow. That is where personal change becomes practical. You stop waiting for the right mood. You stop asking yourself every morning whether you still want the goal. You already decided. Your task is to carry out the decision with enough flexibility to handle a normal human day. Some days will produce excellent work. Some days will produce the minimum. Both can belong to a consistent life as long as you keep returning to the behavior that matters. Make today's decision before the day decides for you. Choose one action that deserves your attention. Give it a clear time. Set a minimum that you can complete, even on a difficult day. Remove one obstacle before you begin. Then keep your promise through the ordinary hours when nobody is watching. Your future improvement will not be determined by what you promise yourself during your most excited moments. It will be shaped by what you decide to do on regular days and how often you carry out those decisions. Start with one clear action. Repeat it tomorrow. Protect it again the next day. Build your standard through real behavior and let your daily actions give you the confidence that words alone cannot provide. Chapter 2. Keep your promise when nobody watches. Your character becomes stronger in the moments that nobody sees. Public effort can bring praise, attention, and approval, but private effort gives you something more valuable. It shows you whether you actually respect the commitments you make to yourself. A person can look disciplined for a short period when other people are watching. Real consistency is tested during the quiet hours when there is no audience and no reward. Most of your important decisions happen privately. Nobody sees you choosing to read instead of scrolling through your phone. Nobody knows that you finished the work after everyone else went to sleep. Nobody applauds you for stopping an unnecessary purchase. Nobody gives you credit for practicing a skill for 20 minutes when you could have relaxed. These small choices may look unimportant in isolation, but they reveal how seriously you take your own word. There is a practical reason private promises matter. Every time you make a commitment and break it without a serious reason, you teach yourself that your own decisions can be ignored. You may still say ambitious things, but your behavior starts to distrust those statements. You tell yourself that you will wake up early, then press the alarm and return to sleep. You promise to study after dinner, then spend the evening watching random videos. You say you will finish a task before entertainment, then change the order because nobody is there to stop you. The damage is not simply the missed task. The deeper problem is the relationship you are building with yourself. Your mind learns from repeated behavior. It notices what happens after you make a promise. When promises are regularly followed by excuses, delaying becomes easier. When promises are regularly followed by action, keeping them becomes more natural. Start making fewer promises and take each one more seriously. This is a simple but powerful change. Do not create a long list of personal commitments that you cannot realistically maintain. Choose 1 or 2 behaviors that matter and give them your full respect. A promise should have a clear action attached to it. Instead of saying you will improve yourself, decide that you will spend 30 minutes each evening developing one useful skill. Now add a condition that many people forget. Decide what you will do when nobody checks your work. A student may study only when a teacher expects an assignment. An employee may work carefully when a manager is nearby. A person trying to improve fitness may exercise only when a friend joins them. These situations depend heavily on external pressure. Your goal is to develop behavior that continues after external pressure disappears. One useful practice is to create a private record. Keep a notebook where you record the commitments you made and whether you kept them. Nobody else needs to see it. Write the date and the action. At the end of the day, mark the result honestly. Do not write a long explanation. You are not trying to defend yourself. You are collecting evidence about your behavior. This record can reveal something uncomfortable but useful. You may discover that you keep promises easily when the task is enjoyable, but avoid them when the task becomes boring. You may notice that your discipline disappears late at night. You may find that you perform well for 3 days and then stop on the 4th. This information gives you something to work with. You cannot improve a pattern that you refuse to observe. There is another important distinction between privacy and secrecy. Keeping your work private does not mean hiding everything from people. It means learning to act without needing constant recognition. You can tell someone about your goal when accountability is useful. You can ask a trusted person to check your progress, but your basic commitment should not depend entirely on their attention. Their approval can support your behavior, but it should not control it. Try this today. Choose one task that normally depends on someone else reminding you. Complete it before they ask. Notice how different that feels. There is a quiet satisfaction in knowing that the action came from your own decision. This is especially valuable for responsibilities that are easy to postpone because nobody immediately complains. Your private standards also matter during small moments of temptation. You finish a difficult task and reach for your phone. You plan to read but feel tired. You plan to save money but see something you want. You plan to practice but decide that one missed session will not matter. These moments are not dramatic. They are ordinary, yet they are exactly where consistency is developed. Learn to pause before breaking a promise. Give yourself 30 seconds. Do not immediately obey the first impulse. Ask yourself what you had already decided and why that decision mattered. This short pause creates space between the urge and the action. You are not trying to eliminate every desire for comfort. You are practicing the ability to choose deliberately. You also need a fair standard for honest changes. Keeping your word does not mean following an outdated decision, no matter what happens. Real life changes. An unexpected responsibility may appear. You may become sick. A serious problem may require your attention. In those cases, changing the plan can be reasonable. The important part is that you make the change consciously instead of using every inconvenience as an excuse. There is a major difference between changing a commitment and escaping one. A responsible person can say, "I cannot complete this today because something important happened. I will do it tomorrow at this time." An unreliable person says, "I will do it later," and leaves the decision undefined. The first response preserves responsibility. The second creates another opportunity for avoidance. Use specific replacement decisions whenever life interrupts your plan. You missed your evening study session because you had an unexpected responsibility. Do not simply say, "Tomorrow." Choose a new time. You could study for 20 minutes before breakfast. You could use part of your lunch break. You could move the session to the next evening and adjust the rest of the schedule. A changed plan should still contain an action and a time. Your environment can also test your private standards. A messy desk can make work less attractive. A phone within reach can make distraction easy. Snacks on the table can influence eating decisions. Entertainment available at the exact time you plan to work can create unnecessary conflict. You can make private discipline easier by changing what surrounds you. Put the phone in another room during focused work. Keep the book you want to read beside your bed. Prepare your work materials before you leave the desk. Remove unnecessary notifications. Keep a visible note showing the one commitment you need to complete. These actions do not replace discipline. They reduce the number of times you need to fight the same distraction. There is also value in doing small things correctly when nobody would know the difference. Put something back where it belongs. Finish a task properly instead of doing the minimum required to make it look finished. Clean your workspace before leaving. Answer an important message honestly. Keep a small financial promise to yourself. These actions build a standard of personal responsibility that reaches beyond one goal. You begin to understand that consistency is not only about achieving a large result. It is about becoming dependable in your own private life. You know what you said you would do. You know what you actually did. That honesty creates self-respect because you are no longer depending on an image of yourself. You are dealing with evidence. Do not make your private life a place where every rule disappears. Many people behave responsibly in public because they fear judgment, then abandon their standards as soon as they are alone. Reverse that pattern. Let your private behavior become the place where your standards are strongest. Public recognition can come later. Your first responsibility is to know that you can trust yourself. Tonight, choose one promise that you have been delaying. Make it specific. Give it a realistic time. Remove the easiest distraction. Complete the task without telling anyone that you did it. Then record the result. You do not need praise for it. The value comes from proving through your own behavior that your word has meaning. Do this repeatedly with small commitments. Your confidence will begin to change because it will be based on experience rather than positive statements. You will know that you can work without supervision. You will know that you can continue without applause. You will know that discomfort does not automatically control your decisions. The strongest form of consistency is not loud. It is visible in your calendar, your completed work, your habits, and the standards you maintain after the room becomes quiet. Keep your promise when nobody watches, because those private decisions are where dependable character is built. And tomorrow, give yourself another small commitment worth keeping. Chapter 3. Finish what you started, even when bored. Boredom is one of the clearest tests of consistency because it removes the excitement that made you begin. Starting a new project often feels good because everything is fresh. You can picture the result. You can feel proud before doing the difficult work. After several days or weeks, the same activity can become ordinary. The new book feels less interesting. The training becomes familiar. The work stops giving you an emotional reward. This is the point where many people leave something unfinished. The problem is not always lack of ability. Very often it is a poor relationship with repetition. People expect useful work to remain exciting, but most valuable skills require repeated practice. A person learning to write must write many ordinary pages. A person learning a language must repeat simple words many times. A person building a business must handle routine tasks that will never feel exciting. A person improving fitness must perform basic movements again and again. The value of the activity does not disappear because the activity becomes familiar. There is a useful distinction between boredom and a genuine reason to stop. Boredom says the activity is no longer stimulating. A real reason says the activity no longer makes sense, has become harmful, or needs to be replaced by a better approach. Those are different situations. You should not abandon an important goal simply because your emotional response has become weaker. Notice what happens in your mind during boring work. You may suddenly remember a message you need to answer. You may want to clean your desk. You may decide to check one short video. You may start planning a different project that seems more exciting. These thoughts can feel reasonable because they arrive with a sense of urgency, but many are simply ways to escape an activity that requires sustained attention. Learn to recognize the first signal of escape. It may be reaching for your phone. It may be standing up without a clear reason. It may be opening another website. It may be telling yourself that you will continue later. The earlier you notice the behavior, the easier it is to interrupt. You do not need to fight every thought. You need to notice which behavior follows the thought. Use a simple rule for boring work. Stay with the task for a fixed period before making a new decision. Give yourself 20 minutes. During those 20 minutes, Do not change the task because you feel bored. You can work slowly. You can make mistakes. You can feel uncomfortable, but you remain with the same activity. After the period ends, you can evaluate your condition honestly. This teaches an important skill that many people never deliberately practice. You learn that boredom does not require immediate action. A feeling can exist without controlling your behavior. That is a powerful form of self-control. You do not need to make the feeling disappear. You only need to stop treating it as an instruction. Another useful practice is to divide unfinished work into visible sections. A large project can feel exhausting because your brain cannot easily see where one piece ends. Instead of saying you need to finish the entire project, identify the next concrete section, complete the introduction, review 5 pages, solve 10 problems, organize 1 folder, edit 1 section. Small completion points give you clear evidence that the work is moving. Do not confuse changing tasks with making progress. Starting something new can produce a quick feeling of productivity. You open a fresh document, you organize new ideas, you research another subject, you buy another course, you create another plan. These actions can feel useful because they are easier than completing the difficult part of an existing project, but unfinished work continues to consume your attention. Look at the projects you have started but not completed. Do not judge yourself. Study them. Write down why each one stopped. Some may have become irrelevant. Some may have been too large. Some may have lacked a clear deadline. Others may have simply become boring. This exercise can show you whether boredom is repeatedly causing you to leave valuable work unfinished. Choose one unfinished project that still matters. Reduce it to a clear finishing target. Do not make the target something vague like "make progress." Decide exactly what finished means. A completed chapter might mean the full draft is written and reviewed once. A completed course might mean all lessons are watched and the exercises are done. A completed fitness program might mean all scheduled sessions are completed for the month. Then create a finishing session. Give the project a specific block of time and protect that block from competing activities. You do not need to feel enthusiastic. Your only requirement is to remain engaged with the selected task. Keep a piece of paper nearby and write down distracting thoughts instead of acting on them. This allows you to remember them without allowing them to interrupt the work. There is also a practical reason to finish more often. Completion teaches you how to deal with the middle of a project. Starting teaches you how to begin. Finishing teaches you how to handle reduced excitement, repeated mistakes, slow progress, and ordinary frustration. Those are different skills. A person who constantly starts new things may become excellent at beginnings while remaining weak at completion. The middle of a project often contains less visible reward than the beginning. The initial excitement has faded, but the final result is not close enough to create strong anticipation. This period requires a different kind of behavior. You must rely more on standards and less on emotional interest. This is why finishing is such valuable training for consistency. Try changing the question you ask yourself. Do not ask whether you still feel excited about the task. Ask whether the task still deserves completion. That question is more useful because it focuses on value rather than mood. You may discover that the work is boring but important. You may also discover that the work is boring because your method is poor. In that case, improve the method instead of abandoning the goal. For example, studying the same material for 2 hours may become dull because the method requires passive reading. You could solve practice problems instead. You could explain the material aloud. You could test yourself without looking at the answers. You could divide the session into shorter sections. The goal remains the same, but the method becomes more active. The same principle applies to exercise. Repeating the same routine can become mentally dull. That does not mean physical improvement has stopped. You can change the exercise order, track your performance, learn better technique, or set a specific performance target. Variation can be useful when it serves the goal. Constantly changing goals simply because the current one feels ordinary is different. You should also stop expecting every useful activity to feel rewarding immediately. Some results are delayed. Learning a skill may feel difficult for weeks before your improvement becomes obvious. Saving money may not produce excitement every day. Building a stronger body takes repeated sessions that may look almost identical. Developing professional ability can require months of ordinary practice. The absence of immediate excitement does not mean the process has no value. Create a completion habit in your daily life. Pick one small task each day that you have a natural tendency to leave unfinished. Complete it before starting another similar task. Finish the article you started reading. Complete the final part of the report. Put away the materials after studying. Finish the exercise set instead of stopping because it became uncomfortable. These small acts train your mind to respect completion. Be careful with perfectionism too. Some people do not finish because they believe the work must be excellent before it can be complete. They keep editing the same page. They keep changing the plan. They keep researching because they are afraid to produce an imperfect result. A practical standard is often better. Decide what quality is required and stop once that standard has been met. Completion does not mean refusing to improve. It means knowing when one version is ready to move forward. A first draft can be complete even though it needs editing. A workout can be complete even though your performance can improve. A course can be complete even though there is more to learn. This distinction prevents endless adjustment from becoming another form of avoidance. There will be days when boredom feels unusually strong. On those days, lower the emotional expectation, but keep the behavioral standard. You do not need to enjoy the work. You need to do the next useful part. Put your phone away. Set a timer. Open the material. Begin with one small section. Stay there until the timer ends. Then decide what comes next based on facts rather than frustration. The ability to continue through ordinary boredom has practical value far beyond one project. It affects education, work, fitness, financial habits, and personal responsibilities. Life contains repeated tasks. People who can perform necessary work without needing constant excitement have an advantage because they can continue where others repeatedly restart. So take one unfinished thing today and give it a finishing plan. Define what complete means. Break the remaining work into clear sections. Choose a session. Remove the easiest distraction. Stay with the task through the first wave of boredom. Do not make a major decision simply because the activity feels ordinary. You may discover that the hardest part was not the work itself. It was the expectation that useful work should keep you interested every minute. Remove that expectation and your behavior becomes more stable. You can be bored and still work. You can be tired and still complete a reasonable amount. You can lose excitement and still respect the reason you began. Finish what deserves to be finished. Let boredom become information rather than an instruction. Learn to remain present during the ordinary parts of meaningful work, because those ordinary parts are where skill is repeated, standards are strengthened, and unfinished intentions become completed results. Chapter 4. Follow your routine when motivation disappears. Motivation can help you begin, but it cannot be trusted to carry your responsibilities every day. Some mornings you will wake up ready to work, and other mornings you will want to stay in bed. Your plans do not become less valuable because your mood changes. Consistency becomes real when your behavior remains connected to your priorities, even during ordinary periods when you feel little excitement. A common mistake is treating motivation as proof that you are ready to act. People wait for the right feeling before exercising, studying, writing, saving money, or learning something difficult. They believe action should come after enthusiasm. In practice, the order is often different. Action can create the feeling of progress that motivation was supposed to provide. Once you begin, resistance often becomes smaller because the hardest part was getting started. Look closely at a normal day without motivation. You wake up and immediately notice that you feel heavy. Your body feels slow. Your mind starts looking for reasons to postpone the work. The bed feels comfortable. Your phone is close. The task waiting for you requires effort. Nothing dramatic has happened. You simply do not feel ready. This is exactly the kind of moment where a routine can protect a useful decision. A routine works because it reduces the number of choices you need to make. You do not need to decide whether exercise is important every morning. You already decided that through your routine. You do not need to debate whether reading is worth doing every night. The decision has already been made. Your responsibility becomes much simpler. You follow the sequence you created instead of reopening the entire argument. This is why a good routine should be easy to understand. A complicated routine becomes difficult to follow when energy is low. You might create 10 steps for your morning and expect perfect execution every day. After a stressful night, that plan can feel impossible. A better system contains a few actions that matter most. Wake up, wash, drink water, sit down, begin the important task. The details can change, but the key behavior remains protected. Your routine should also have a starting signal. This is a small event that tells you it is time to begin. It might be finishing breakfast. It might be arriving home from work. It might be putting your child to bed. It might be closing your laptop after your job ends. Connect that event with the next useful action. Once the signal appears, you move directly into the routine instead of giving yourself a long period to negotiate. Delay creates opportunities for distraction. A person says, "I will start in 10 minutes. 10 minutes later, they say they need coffee first. Then they check a message. Then they watch a short video. The task becomes harder before it has even started. A direct transition is often better. Finish the starting signal and move immediately into the planned behavior. There is a useful technique for low motivation called the first 5 minutes. Do not promise yourself an entire session. Promise yourself that you will begin for 5 minutes. Open the book. Put on the shoes. Sit at the desk. Write the first paragraph. Solve the first problem. Once 5 minutes pass, you can decide whether to continue. The important part is that the decision to begin is smaller than the decision to complete everything. This approach is not about tricking yourself. It is about separating starting resistance from the actual difficulty of the task. Many tasks feel hardest before you begin because your mind is predicting effort without experiencing it. After you start, the situation becomes concrete. You can see the page, you can touch the equipment. You can identify the first problem. Your brain no longer needs to imagine the entire workload at once. Another important lesson is to stop measuring discipline by how you feel. You can feel motivated and still waste the day. You can feel tired and still complete meaningful work. Feelings provide information about your current condition, but they do not automatically determine what deserves to happen next. A mature routine allows feelings to exist without giving them complete control over your schedule. Your energy does matter, though. Discipline does not mean ignoring physical needs. Poor sleep, constant stress, hunger, and excessive workload can reduce your ability to concentrate. The practical response is not to abandon the routine. Adjust the intensity while protecting the essential behavior. A hard workout can become a light workout. A long study session can become a shorter review. A large writing target can become a smaller editing session. This gives you a useful distinction between keeping the routine and keeping the same workload. The routine can remain stable while the amount of work changes. That flexibility makes consistency more realistic. You are not trying to prove that you can perform at maximum capacity every day. You are building a pattern that survives changes in energy and circumstances. Take exercise as an example. Your normal session might be 40 minutes. You slept badly and feel exhausted. You have two choices. You can abandon the habit completely or reduce the session to 15 minutes of lighter movement. The second option respects your condition while keeping physical activity connected to your daily life. You can return to your normal level when your energy improves. The same principle works with learning. Suppose your usual study session is 1 hour. Your mind feels scattered after a difficult day. You could spend that hour staring at the material without learning much. A better approach might be 20 minutes of active review. Close the book and recall what you learned. Write down what you remember. Check the answers. Correct your mistakes. You may learn more from focused work than from a longer session performed without attention. This is where many people misunderstand consistency. They believe consistency means doing exactly the same amount of work under every condition. That standard is too rigid. Real consistency means continuing to practice the behavior that matters while adjusting intelligently to circumstances. The routine gives you stability. Good judgment gives you flexibility. You also need to identify your predictable motivation problems. Maybe Monday mornings are difficult. Maybe your energy drops after lunch. Maybe you lose focus after dinner. Maybe weekends destroy the routine because your schedule changes. Study these patterns instead of being surprised by them every week. Once you know when your motivation usually falls, you can prepare for those periods. Prepare the difficult period in advance. Put your study materials on the desk before sleeping. Schedule the workout before your busiest part of the day. Decide what you will eat before hunger becomes strong. Choose the exact task you will work on before opening your computer. Preparation is valuable because it removes decisions at the moment your energy is lowest. Your environment can support this process. Make the useful action visible and the distracting action less convenient. Keep the book open to the page you need. Keep your phone outside the room during focused work. Put your shoes near the door. Keep your notebook beside your computer. These changes reduce the amount of effort required to follow the routine. You should also protect your routine from unnecessary perfection. Missing the exact starting time by 15 minutes does not mean the day is ruined. A person who planned to exercise at 6 but starts at 6:15 has still preserved the behavior. The danger comes from turning a small delay into an excuse to cancel the entire session. Learn to continue from where you are, instead of waiting for the perfect schedule to return. There is another practical exercise worth using. Write 2 versions of your routine. The first is your normal version. The second is your low-energy version. Your normal morning might include 30 minutes of exercise and 20 minutes of reading. Your low-energy version might include 10 minutes of movement and 5 pages of reading. Both versions protect the same areas of life. This removes the common choice between perfection and abandonment. You have a third option. You can adjust without disappearing from your own routine. Do not make your routine dependent on excitement. Make it dependent on a clear sequence that you understand and can repeat. Motivation will return at times. You may have days when you feel strong and productive. Enjoy those days, but do not build your system around them. Your routine should be strong enough to guide you through the quieter days too. There is a deeper benefit to this practice. You begin to trust your schedule more than your mood. You know what happens next because you have already decided. That reduces internal debate. The morning becomes simpler. The evening becomes more organized. Your attention can move toward the work instead of repeatedly asking whether you want to do it. Tonight, choose one routine that matters to your growth. Identify its starting signal. Write the normal version and the low-energy version. Prepare the environment before you sleep. Then follow the first step tomorrow without waiting for enthusiasm. Give yourself 5 minutes of honest effort before making any decision about continuing. Motivation will change throughout your life. Your responsibilities will change too. Your energy will rise and fall. A dependable routine gives you something stable to return to while those conditions move around you. That stability is valuable because progress depends on repeated behavior, not on having the same emotional state every morning. Follow the routine because the decision has already been made. Adjust the amount when reality requires it. Protect the behavior that matters. Start even when the feeling is absent. Keep moving through the ordinary days and your actions will become more dependable than your changing mood. Chapter 5. Choose progress even on your worst days. Some days are simply harder than others. Your energy may be low. Your schedule may be crowded. A difficult conversation may stay in your mind. Work may take longer than expected. You may sit at your desk and feel that everything requires more effort than usual. These days do not need to become successful days in the usual sense. They need to become days where you protect your direction. Progress is not always measured by how much you accomplish. Sometimes it is measured by how little you allow a difficult day to damage your long-term behavior. This is an important change in thinking. A bad day does not need to produce a great result. It needs to avoid becoming a reason to abandon something that matters. Many people make their personal standards too dependent on their best condition. They expect the same concentration after a full night of sleep and after 4 hours of rest. They expect the same productivity during a peaceful afternoon and during a day filled with unexpected problems. Then they become frustrated when their performance changes. A better approach is to separate your standard of commitment from your level of performance. Your commitment can remain strong while your workload becomes smaller. That distinction gives you room to handle real life without giving up on personal improvement. You may normally study for 1 hour, but only manage 15 minutes today. You may usually write 1,000 words, but produce 300 useful words. You may normally exercise for 40 minutes, but complete a gentle 10-minute session. The amount changed, but the relationship with the habit remained intact. There is a practical reason to protect even small amounts of progress. Long gaps make restarting harder. After several days away from an activity, the first session can feel unfamiliar again. You need to rebuild the rhythm of starting. A small action on a difficult day can reduce that gap. It keeps the activity connected to your normal life and makes the next session easier to approach. Do not confuse a reduced effort with failure. Failure is not the same as doing less. A person who studies for 15 focused minutes during an extremely difficult day may demonstrate more control than someone who studies for 2 hours only when everything feels easy. The useful question is not how impressive the effort looked. The useful question is whether you moved the important part of your life forward under the conditions you actually had. This requires honest assessment. At the beginning of a difficult day, ask yourself what is truly necessary and what can wait. Separate urgent responsibilities from activities that simply demand attention. You may discover that your day contains more flexibility than you first believed. Protect the important task before spending your limited energy on less important things. Make a difficult day smaller before you make it empty. This means reducing unnecessary commitments rather than removing every meaningful activity. You can simplify dinner. You can postpone non-essential errands. You can shorten entertainment. You can reduce the number of tasks on your list. The purpose is to create enough space for one useful action that keeps you connected to your priorities. Consider what happens after a stressful workday. You arrive home with your shoulders tense and your mind full of unfinished problems. You plan to study for an hour. An hour feels impossible. Instead of abandoning the goal, sit down for 10 minutes and review what you learned yesterday. Write 3 notes. Complete 1 exercise, then stop if you genuinely need rest. You have respected both your condition and your long-term direction. Rest is also part of intelligent consistency. Choosing progress does not mean forcing yourself through every situation. Sometimes your body needs sleep. Sometimes your mind needs recovery. Sometimes a serious responsibility must take priority. The mistake is not resting. The mistake is using rest as a general excuse, without deciding when you will return to the important behavior. Give rest a clear boundary. You can say that tonight is for recovery, and tomorrow morning is for returning to the routine. You can decide to sleep early and resume your work after breakfast. A planned pause is different from disappearing from the habit. The first protects recovery. The second often creates avoidance. Your worst days can also teach you something valuable about your system. Pay attention to what causes your routine to collapse. Maybe your plan has no flexibility. Maybe you schedule demanding work at the end of a long day. Maybe you take on too many goals. Maybe your environment makes distraction too easy. Instead of blaming your character, examine the structure. Suppose you repeatedly skip your exercise after work because you arrive home exhausted. The answer may not be stronger willpower. You might move the workout to the morning. You might exercise during lunch. You might keep a shorter version for busy days. You are not lowering your desire for improvement. You are changing the conditions so that the desired behavior has a better chance of happening. This is one of the most practical lessons in personal growth. Do not solve every behavior problem by demanding more willpower from yourself. Sometimes the smarter solution is to change the situation, put the task earlier, reduce the steps, prepare materials ahead of time, remove unnecessary choices, make the useful action easier to begin. Your difficult days can also expose unrealistic expectations. You may discover that your normal schedule leaves no room for unexpected events. You may have planned every hour so tightly that one interruption ruins the entire day. Build space into your schedule. A few open periods can prevent one problem from destroying everything else. Another useful practice is to define your daily win before the day becomes complicated. Choose one result that would make the day meaningful, even if other plans fail. It could be completing an important work assignment. It could be 20 minutes of study. It could be preparing tomorrow's schedule. It could be exercising. This prevents a long list of unfinished tasks from convincing you that nothing useful happened. Do not let one bad area define the entire day. A difficult morning does not require a difficult afternoon. A mistake at work does not mean you should abandon your evening routine. An argument does not need to control the next 6 hours. Learn to divide the day into separate periods. You can make a poor decision at 10 in the morning and still make a good decision at 2. This skill is especially important after personal mistakes. Many people do not suffer most from the original mistake. They suffer from the behavior that follows it. They miss a workout and then eat poorly for the rest of the day. They overspend once and decide that saving money is pointless. They waste an hour online and then waste the evening because the day already feels ruined. This is unnecessary. Stop giving one mistake permission to create another. A mistake can end at the moment you recognize it. You do not need to repair the entire day at once. Make the next useful decision. Drink water. Close the distracting website. Return to the assignment. Put the money away. Go to sleep at the planned time. The next action is more important than the emotional story you create about what already happened. Your emotional state also deserves attention. Difficult days can make small problems feel larger. You may become impatient. You may judge yourself harshly. You may believe that your progress has disappeared. Do not make major decisions about your future during a temporary low point. Complete what is reasonable. Rest where necessary. Reassess your larger plans after your mind is calmer. Keep a record of difficult days and how you responded to them. After a month, look back at the entries. You may notice that some of your worst days still contained useful actions. You may also discover that certain problems repeat at predictable times. This information helps you build better systems. Personal development becomes more practical when you learn from patterns rather than relying on memory alone. Try creating 3 levels of effort for one important habit. Your full level is what you do on a normal good day. Your reduced level is what you can manage on a busy day. Your emergency level is the smallest meaningful action you can complete when circumstances are genuinely difficult. For reading, that might be 30 pages, 10 pages, and 2 pages. For exercise, it might be 40 minutes, 15 minutes, and 5 minutes of basic movement. The smallest level should still have a purpose. Do not choose an action merely to say you did something. Choose something that keeps the skill or behavior active. 2 pages of difficult reading can reinforce the habit of learning. 5 minutes of movement can remind your body that exercise remains part of your schedule. 1 paragraph of writing can keep you connected to the project. Over time, this approach changes how you experience difficult periods. You stop seeing them as interruptions that destroy your progress. You begin treating them as conditions that require a different level of effort. That is a more mature form of discipline. You are no longer demanding that every day look the same. You are learning how to keep important areas of life moving under different conditions. Tonight, identify one area where your progress usually disappears during stressful periods. Write your normal action. Then create a smaller version that you can complete on a difficult day. Decide what situation would justify using the smaller version. Put that decision somewhere you will see it. The next time the day becomes difficult, you will not need to invent a solution while tired. Your worst days do not need to produce your best performance. They can produce something more useful. They can show you how committed you are to continuing when conditions are not comfortable. They can teach you where your routine is weak. They can reveal which commitments actually matter. They can help you build a system that works with real life rather than an imaginary perfect schedule. Choose the next useful action even when the day has not gone well. Protect what matters without demanding perfection. Reduce the workload when necessary without abandoning the direction. Give yourself honest rest when recovery is needed, and set a clear point for returning to your responsibilities. A difficult day becomes much less powerful when it cannot decide what happens next. You still have another hour. You still have another choice. You still have one useful action available. Take that action and let tomorrow begin from a stronger position than today ended. Chapter 6. Stop making excuses when things feel difficult. Excuses become powerful when they sound reasonable. A person rarely tells themselves that they simply want to avoid effort. They usually create a better-sounding explanation. They say there is not enough time. They are too tired. They need better conditions. They will begin after things become easier. Some explanations are true, but many are convenient ways to avoid an uncomfortable action. Learning to tell the difference is an important part of becoming consistent. Difficulty is not always a sign that something is wrong. Sometimes difficulty is evidence that you are doing work that requires growth. A new skill feels confusing because you have not developed it yet. A serious project feels demanding because it requires sustained attention. Physical training becomes uncomfortable because your body is being challenged. Saving money requires restraint because spending is easier. The presence of difficulty does not automatically mean you should stop. Start by separating facts from excuses. A fact describes the situation clearly. An excuse protects you from responsibility without solving the situation. Saying that you have 2 hours available today is a fact. Saying that you cannot make any progress because you do not have enough time may be an excuse when the task can be divided into smaller parts. Saying that you are exhausted after working a long shift may be true. Saying that you therefore cannot do anything useful may be an unnecessary conclusion. This distinction gives you a practical way to examine your thinking. Whenever you hear yourself saying that you cannot do something, add one more question. What can I do with what I have today? That question moves your attention from limitation to action. You may not have 2 hours, but you may have 20 minutes. You may not have perfect equipment, but you may have enough to practice the basics. You may not understand the entire subject, but you can study one section. Excuses often grow because the task is too vague. A person says they need to work on their career, improve their finances, become healthier, or learn a skill. These goals are too broad to act on immediately. When the task feels unclear, the mind finds reasons to postpone it. Turn the problem into a physical action. Open the document, write the first paragraph, review one expense, study one lesson, walk for 15 minutes. A clear action gives you less room to hide behind uncertainty. There is another common excuse that sounds intelligent. I need to prepare more before I start. Preparation has value, but excessive preparation can become avoidance. You read another article instead of practicing. You watch another tutorial instead of producing something. You organize your notes instead of studying them. You buy another tool instead of using the one you already have. At some point, preparation stops improving your ability and starts protecting you from the discomfort of doing the work. Set a preparation limit. Give yourself a specific amount of time to gather what you need. Then begin. You will learn things through action that you cannot learn through endless preparation. A person learning to write improves by writing. A person learning to speak improves by speaking. A person learning business improves by dealing with real customers and real problems. Information matters, but experience exposes weaknesses that information alone cannot reveal. Excuses also become easier when you use extreme language. Words such as always and never can make a temporary problem feel permanent. You say that you never have enough time. You always lose focus. You are never disciplined. These statements are difficult to solve because they describe your entire identity rather than one behavior. Replace them with precise observations. You lost focus for 40 minutes this afternoon. You skipped 3 workouts this month. You spent more than planned this week. Specific information gives you something you can change. Take responsibility without attacking yourself. Responsibility is not self-punishment. It means accepting that your next action belongs to you. You may not control how difficult the day becomes. You may not control what another person does. You may not control unexpected events. You can still control whether you make the next useful decision. This is especially important when other people are involved. Someone may criticize your work. A manager may give you an unfair deadline. A friend may discourage you. A family responsibility may reduce your available time. These conditions can be genuinely difficult. Your responsibility is not to pretend they do not matter. Your responsibility is to decide what remains within your control and act there. Write 2 columns on a piece of paper. In the first column, list what you cannot control. In the second, list what you can control. Do not spend the entire day trying to solve the first column. Use the second column to identify your next action. This exercise can reduce mental noise because it forces you to separate concern from responsibility. Another excuse appears after failure. A person makes a mistake and decides that the mistake proves they are not capable. They stop practicing because they do not want to experience another failure. This response protects pride but prevents learning. A mistake becomes useful when you study it. What exactly went wrong? Was the plan unrealistic? Did you lack information? Did you rush? Did you fail to check your work? Did you ignore an earlier warning? Correct the specific problem instead of creating a negative identity around it. You are not required to call yourself talented or confident. You need to know what needs improvement. A student who gets a poor result can review the incorrect answers. A worker who makes an error can identify where the process failed. A person who overspends can examine the purchase that triggered it. Clear correction is more useful than vague guilt. There is also a difference between an excuse and a legitimate boundary. You should not force yourself through every situation simply to prove toughness. A deadline may need renegotiation. A task may require more resources. A physical problem may require professional attention. A personal responsibility may make your original schedule impossible. Discipline includes recognizing reality. The goal is not to deny limitations. The goal is to stop using ordinary discomfort as evidence that action is impossible. Ask yourself whether the obstacle requires adjustment or surrender. Adjustment changes the method while preserving the important objective. Surrender abandons the objective because the current method feels difficult. You might change your study time because your work schedule changed. That is adjustment. You might quit learning because the material became challenging. That is surrender. Knowing this difference can protect you from unnecessary quitting. Your language matters too. Notice the difference between saying, "I have to do this," and saying, "I choose to do this." The first can make responsibility feel like punishment. The second reminds you that your actions are connected to priorities you selected. You may not enjoy every part of the process, but you understand why the effort matters. That understanding can make difficult work easier to accept. Do not wait until the moment of difficulty to decide your standards. Create rules in advance. You might decide that you will not use your phone during the first 30 minutes of important work. You might decide that purchases above a certain amount require a day of consideration. You might decide that you will complete the most important task before entertainment. Rules reduce negotiation because you have already decided what matters. Be careful with the phrase, "just this once." One exception does not destroy discipline, but repeated exceptions create a new pattern. The important question is not whether you can make an exception. The question is whether the exception has a clear reason. A genuine emergency is different from simple discomfort. A major responsibility is different from temporary boredom. A planned break is different from spontaneous avoidance. You can also use a short delay technique. When an excuse appears, do not argue with it for 10 minutes. Start the task for 5 minutes. During those 5 minutes, focus only on the first step. Afterward, assess the situation again. Often the problem becomes smaller once action begins. If the obstacle remains real, you can adjust intelligently. This prevents imaginary difficulty from receiving more authority than actual experience. Look at your most common excuse and study its timing. Maybe it appears late at night. Maybe it appears after you receive criticism. Maybe it appears when a project reaches a difficult stage. Maybe it appears whenever you compare your progress with someone else's. Find the pattern. Once you know when the excuse usually appears, you can prepare a response before it arrives. For example, your usual thought may be, "I am too far behind to catch up." Your prepared response can be, "I will complete the next 20 minutes of work." Your usual thought may be, "I do not know enough yet." Your response can be, I will practice the part I understand and identify what I need to learn. The response is not a positive slogan. It is a specific action that answers the problem. You will also need to become comfortable with imperfect work. Some people make excuses because they want certainty before they act. They want to know that the plan will work. They want to know that the effort will succeed. That certainty rarely exists. You can research carefully and still make mistakes. You can prepare and still face unexpected problems. Action is often how you discover what needs to change. Give yourself permission to produce a first attempt that needs improvement. Then improve it based on evidence. This is more productive than waiting for confidence. A first draft can reveal weaknesses. A practice session can expose gaps. A test can show what you do not understand. Real feedback gives you information that avoidance cannot provide. Today, pay attention to every sentence you use to explain why an important task cannot happen. Write the sentence down. Then separate the real limitation from the added story. Ask what remains possible. Choose the smallest useful action that addresses the real problem. Do that action before creating another explanation. Your goal is not to become a person who never has reasons to stop. Your goal is to become a person who examines those reasons honestly. Some days will require rest. Some plans will need changes. Some goals will need to be replaced because your circumstances have changed. But discomfort alone should not make that decision. Difficult work becomes easier to handle once you stop treating every obstacle as a command to retreat. You can acknowledge the problem, adjust the method, reduce the workload, ask for help, or take a short recovery period. What matters is that your response is based on reality rather than convenience. Your excuses lose power when your actions become specific. Name the problem. Identify what you control. Choose one useful step. Give yourself a reasonable amount of time. Complete that step before judging the entire situation. Keep practicing this response in ordinary moments. Each time you replace an unnecessary excuse with a useful action, you become more honest about what you can do. That honesty gives you a stronger foundation for consistency because you are no longer depending on perfect conditions. You are learning to work with reality as it is. And tomorrow, notice the first excuse that appears before an important task. Do not fight it with emotion. Examine it carefully. Find the part that is true, remove the part that is convenient, and act on what remains. Chapter 7. Return to your routine after missing days. Missing several days does not erase the work you have already done. The real danger begins when you turn a short break into a new way of living. One missed workout is an event. One missed week can become a pattern. The skill you need is not perfect attendance. The skill is knowing how to return without wasting more time judging yourself. People often make restarting harder than it needs to be. They miss a few days and then create a dramatic plan to compensate. They promise to work twice as hard. They schedule longer sessions. They expect immediate perfection. That approach can create another failure because the new routine demands more energy than they currently have. A better return is usually smaller, calmer, and more specific. Start by accepting the interruption without creating a story around it. You do not need to call yourself lazy. You do not need to decide that you have lost discipline. Look at the facts. You stopped exercising for 5 days. You stopped reading for a week. You missed several study sessions. That is what happened. Keep the description accurate. Once you stop adding judgment, you have more attention available for the next decision. Now, identify why the routine stopped. This question is more useful than asking why you are not disciplined enough. Maybe your schedule changed, maybe you traveled, maybe work became unusually demanding, maybe you stayed up too late for several nights, maybe you became distracted by a new responsibility, maybe the original routine was too demanding to maintain. Each cause requires a different response. Suppose you missed your exercise routine because you were working late every evening. Returning to the exact same evening schedule may produce another interruption. Move the activity to a period that better matches your current life. Perhaps you can exercise before work. Perhaps lunch is more reliable. Perhaps 3 shorter sessions during the week are more realistic than one long session. A successful return often begins with understanding why the old arrangement failed. Do not spend your first day trying to recover everything you missed. This is one of the most common mistakes. A person misses 4 workouts and then tries to complete an unusually hard session. A student misses several lessons and attempts to study for 6 hours in one day. Someone stops writing for a week and tries to produce a huge amount of work immediately. The emotional goal is to erase the evidence of the missed days. The practical goal should be to restore the behavior. Return at a level that makes tomorrow possible. That sentence can change how you approach restarting. Your first session should not leave you exhausted and disappointed. It should give you enough energy and confidence to repeat the behavior soon. A moderate return can be more valuable than an impressive comeback that creates another long break. Think about a person who stopped running for 2 weeks. The first session does not need to prove that they are still in excellent shape. It needs to establish that running is happening again. A short, comfortable run may be appropriate. The next session can be planned after recovery. The objective is to restore regular participation before increasing intensity. The same principle works with mental work. After several days away from studying, do not begin by attacking the hardest chapter for 3 hours. Start by reviewing what you already know. Then complete one manageable lesson. Write down the points you do not understand. This gives your brain a clear path back into the subject. The return becomes an organized process instead of an emotional punishment. There is another reason people avoid restarting. They feel embarrassed by the gap. They remember how disciplined they were before and compare that person with their current behavior. This comparison can create shame. Shame often reduces useful action because attention becomes focused on self-judgment rather than problem-solving. You do not need to feel proud of the interruption. You simply need to respond intelligently to it. Your past consistency is evidence that the behavior is possible. Your recent interruption is evidence that something needs attention. Both facts can exist together. You can acknowledge the failure without allowing it to define the next month. Create a return rule for the habits that matter most. Your rule could be that after any interruption, you restart with the smallest useful version at the next reasonable opportunity. This removes unnecessary debate. You do not wait for Monday. You do not wait for the first day of the month. You do not wait until your schedule becomes perfect. You identify the next available period and begin there. This is especially useful because people often attach new starts to dates. They say they will restart next week. Then next week arrives with another problem. The calendar does not create discipline. a decision does. You can restart on an ordinary Wednesday afternoon. You can return after lunch. You can reopen the book tonight. The exact date has little importance compared with the behavior that follows. Make the return visible. Put the activity back into your calendar. Prepare the materials. Set the alarm. Clear the workspace. Tell yourself exactly what the first session will contain. Do not write that you will get back on track. Write that you will study pages 20 through 25 at 7:30. Do not write that you will start exercising again. Write the exact session and time. A clear return plan should answer 4 questions. What will I do? When will I do it? How long will I continue? What will I do afterward? The last question matters because recovery can affect the next session. If you plan a difficult workout, you need to consider rest. If you study late at night, you need to consider sleep. A routine becomes more sustainable when you think beyond one session. You should also examine what happened immediately before the interruption. The cause may not have been the obvious event. You may say you stopped studying because you became busy, but perhaps the deeper issue was that you were already sleeping poorly for several nights. You may say you stopped exercising because of work. Perhaps your workout time was simply too late for your energy level. Look 1 or 2 steps deeper. This process is called learning from the break, but it does not require complicated analysis. Ask what changed. Ask what made the routine difficult. Ask what warning signs appeared before you stopped. Then change one part of the system. Do not redesign everything at once. One useful adjustment can be enough. Keep a short restart note. Write the date you returned. Write why you stopped. Write what you changed. Then check again after 1 week. This creates a feedback process. You are not relying on memory or emotion. You can see whether the adjustment helped. Another important lesson is to avoid using the missed days as proof that your goal is impossible. A gap tells you that your current system did not work during that period. It does not prove that the goal cannot be achieved. The difference matters. You can change the schedule, reduce the workload, ask for help, remove distractions, use a different method. There are many possible corrections before you need to abandon the objective. Be careful with all or nothing thinking. You do not need to complete every planned session to make a successful return. Suppose you intended to exercise 5 days this week and completed 3. That is information. Perhaps 3 is currently sustainable. Perhaps you need to adjust the schedule. Do not turn 3 completed sessions into a reason to ignore them because the original target was 5. Progress after a break should be measured by renewed participation and improved understanding. The first week back may not produce your best performance. That is acceptable. You are rebuilding regular behavior. Give yourself enough time to settle into the routine before judging its effectiveness. There is also value in returning without announcing it. You do not need to make a public statement about your comeback. You do not need to explain the missed days to everyone. Open the notebook, put on the shoes, sit at the desk, do the work. The quiet return is often easier because it removes the pressure to prove something. Your first day back may feel strange. The chair may feel unfamiliar. The exercise may feel harder. The pages may seem more difficult to understand. Do not interpret that feeling as evidence that you have lost everything. Some temporary difficulty is expected after a break. Your job is to give yourself enough exposure to the activity for familiarity to return. Think about learning an instrument. After several days without practice, your fingers may feel less comfortable. The answer is not to conclude that you cannot play. You begin with basic exercises. You repeat familiar movements. Coordination returns through practice. Many skills respond the same way. Use the first sessions to restore familiarity rather than demanding immediate peak performance. There is a practical rule you can use today. Never spend more time explaining the missed days than you spend preparing the return. A short explanation can be useful. Endless analysis is not. Once you understand the likely cause, move toward action. You can also create a recovery sequence for major habits. For example, after missing several study sessions, spend the first day reviewing. On the second day, complete a normal lesson. On the third day, return to the regular schedule. This gradual approach can prevent the pressure to catch up from becoming another reason to stop. Do not try to recover lost time by destroying your present energy. You cannot change the days that already passed. You can protect the days that are still available. The most useful question is not how much time did I lose. It is what is the best use of the next available hour. That question puts responsibility back into the present. Yesterday cannot be edited. Last week cannot be repeated. Today still contains choices. You can make the first session shorter. You can prepare tomorrow's work. You can remove one distraction. You can repair one part of your schedule. These actions are small, but they have direct value. A person becomes reliable not because they never fall out of rhythm, but because they know how to rebuild it. Every interruption becomes a chance to understand what makes their routine stable or unstable. The goal is not to become someone who never misses. The goal is to become someone who does not stay away unnecessarily. So look at one habit you have recently neglected. Identify the reason for the break without insulting yourself. Choose the smallest meaningful version of the activity. Put it on a specific day and time. Prepare the environment before that moment arrives. Then return without trying to prove anything. Your next session does not need to repair your entire past. It only needs to establish your next piece of progress. Once that action is complete, plan the following one. Keep the return simple enough that you can repeat it. A missed period is part of your history. It does not have to become part of your identity. Learn from what interrupted you. Change what needs changing. Start again with a realistic amount of work. Then give the habit enough time to become normal again. The most important moment after a break is not the day you regret stopping. It is the moment you decide to participate again. Use that moment well. Put the materials in front of you and begin the first small session today. Chapter 8. Push yourself when comfort asks you to stop. Comfort becomes a serious problem when it starts making decisions for you. There is nothing wrong with resting after honest effort or enjoying a quiet evening after a demanding day. The problem begins when you repeatedly choose what feels easiest instead of what moves your life forward. Consistency requires you to recognize the difference between healthy recovery and unnecessary avoidance. Your mind naturally notices effort. A difficult task requires attention. A long workout requires energy. Studying requires concentration. Practicing a new skill requires patience. At the same time, your environment usually offers easier alternatives. Your phone is easier than a book. Sitting is easier than exercising. Watching another video is easier than finishing the assignment. The easier choice often feels better immediately, but immediate comfort does not always serve your long-term interests. Learn to identify the exact moment when comfort starts influencing your decision. It may happen after 20 minutes of work. You look at the clock and suddenly feel tired. You may tell yourself that you have already done enough. You may feel an urge to check messages. You may decide that tomorrow will be better. That moment deserves attention, because the decision you make there can determine whether you continue or stop. Do not respond by demanding extreme effort from yourself. The useful skill is knowing how much additional effort is appropriate. There is a difference between healthy discomfort and harmful strain. A challenging study session can feel mentally tiring. A difficult exercise can make your muscles work harder. A demanding conversation can require emotional control. These experiences can be uncomfortable without being unsafe. You need judgment rather than blind force. Use a simple test. Ask whether the discomfort is temporary and expected, or whether it signals a genuine problem. Mental resistance during difficult learning is often expected. Sharp physical pain during exercise is not something to ignore. Feeling bored during a routine task is different from being severely sleep-deprived. A disciplined person does not treat every unpleasant feeling as a reason to stop, but they also do not ignore important warning signs. One practical way to build this skill is to add a small extension to work you already planned. Complete your normal study session and then spend 5 additional minutes reviewing your weakest area. Finish your scheduled workout and perform a short cool-down instead of leaving immediately. Complete your writing target and spend another few minutes correcting obvious errors. The extension should be controlled. You are teaching yourself to continue slightly beyond the point where comfort usually tells you to leave. This practice matters because people often stop automatically at the first sign of resistance. They do not make a conscious decision, they simply respond to the feeling. By adding a small planned extension, you create a new response. Resistance appears, you notice it, and you continue for a defined period. That is more useful than trying to become comfortable with discomfort all at once. You can also practice staying with a task after the interesting part ends. A student may enjoy learning new concepts but dislike reviewing them. A writer may enjoy creating ideas but dislike editing. An employee may enjoy starting a project but dislike checking details. A person may enjoy beginning a workout but dislike the final exercises. These less enjoyable sections are often necessary for quality. Do not judge a task only by the part you enjoy. Ask what part produces the result. Editing improves communication. Review improves memory. Checking details prevents mistakes. The final repetitions can develop physical capacity. Administrative work can keep a project organized. A mature approach to personal growth includes these less exciting responsibilities. Comfort also influences your physical environment. A warm bed makes getting up difficult. A phone beside your desk makes distraction easy. A comfortable chair can turn a short break into an hour. A television can make starting work feel harder. You do not need to remove every comfort from your life. You need to stop placing the easiest distraction directly beside an important task. Change one environmental detail today. Put your phone farther away during focused work. Somnophores, keep your study materials ready before you sit down. Place your exercise shoes where you will see them. Use a separate location for entertainment and concentrated work. The goal is to make the first useful action easier and the first distracting action slightly less convenient. There is another form of comfort that deserves attention. It is the comfort of staying with what you already know. Learning something new can make you feel inexperienced. You may prefer familiar tasks because you can perform them without much uncertainty. Growth often requires periods where your performance is not impressive. You make mistakes. You ask basic questions. You need more time. You may feel slower than other people. Do not use temporary incompetence as evidence that you should return to easier work. A beginner needs practice, precisely because they are not yet skilled. The discomfort of being inexperienced is part of the learning process. You can reduce it by choosing challenges that are difficult enough to require attention, but not so difficult that you have no idea where to begin. Choose one skill you want to improve and increase the challenge slightly. Read something a little more difficult. Solve a problem without immediately checking the answer. Speak for several minutes without preparing every sentence. Write without editing every word as you go. Increase the difficulty gradually so that your effort produces useful feedback. This leads to an important principle. Do not push yourself randomly. Push yourself with a reason. Extra effort should improve a skill, complete necessary work, or strengthen a useful behavior. Working longer simply to feel exhausted is not automatically productive. Discipline is not measured by suffering. It is measured by whether your effort is directed toward something valuable. You can use a simple scale to judge your effort. Rate the task from 1 to 10 based on how difficult it feels. If it feels like a 3, you may have room to increase the challenge. If it feels like a 6, steady effort may be enough. If it feels like a 9 because you are exhausted or overwhelmed, continuing at the same intensity may be poor judgment. This is not a scientific measurement. It is a practical way to become more aware of your condition. Comfort can also appear after success. You reach a goal and immediately relax your standards. You complete a month of training and stop because you feel proud of the result. You save some money and then spend it impulsively. You finish an important project and allow your entire routine to disappear. Success can create a different kind of risk because it gives you permission to reduce effort too quickly. Celebrate progress without abandoning the behaviors that created it. You do not need to work harder every day. You need to maintain the actions that produce the improvement. Once a habit becomes stable, you can increase the challenge carefully. This keeps progress connected to a sustainable routine rather than short periods of extreme effort. Another useful practice is to delay easy rewards until important work is complete. This does not mean removing entertainment. It means changing the order. Complete your study session before watching a show. Finish your priority task before spending time on social media. Exercise before settling into your evening entertainment. The reward becomes something you enjoy after fulfilling a responsibility rather than something that interrupts it. The order of your actions can strongly influence your day. Easy pleasure at the beginning can make difficult work feel even harder afterward. You become relaxed before doing the task that requires effort. Your attention becomes divided. You start comparing the difficult task with the enjoyable activity you just experienced. Protect the important work first when possible. You should also learn to tolerate unfinished comfort. You do not need to watch the entire video. You do not need to finish the entire series. You do not need to respond to every message immediately. You do not need to satisfy every desire as soon as it appears. This ability creates space for priorities. You begin to understand that wanting something does not require immediate action. Practice this with small decisions. Notice the urge to check your phone and wait 10 minutes. Notice the desire for a snack and finish the task first. Notice the temptation to stop studying and complete one more exercise. These small delays teach you that you can experience an urge without obeying it. There is a deeper lesson here about freedom. A person who must follow every desire has less control over their time. A person who can notice a desire and choose whether to act on it has more control. Self-discipline is not about making life unpleasant. It is about giving your important decisions more authority than temporary impulses. Your most valuable push may be very small. It might be 5 more minutes of focused work. It might be 1 more page. It might be 1 additional practice attempt. It might be finishing the cleanup after a project instead of leaving it for tomorrow. Small extensions matter because they train the response you want under pressure. Do not make every day a test of maximum endurance. That approach can create fatigue and resentment. Use controlled challenges. Give yourself demanding sessions and recovery periods. Increase the difficulty when your current level becomes comfortable. Reduce intensity when your body or mind genuinely needs recovery. This creates progress without turning discipline into punishment. At the end of each day, identify one moment where you chose comfort over an important action. Do not criticize yourself. Study the situation. What were you doing before the decision? What distraction was available? What feeling appeared? What could make the useful choice easier tomorrow? This short review can help you identify patterns that are difficult to notice during the busy part of the day. Then, identify one moment where you continued despite resistance. Record what helped. Maybe you started before checking your phone. Maybe you used a timer. Maybe you prepared your materials earlier. Maybe you reduced the task to a manageable section. Repeat the method that worked. Your goal is not to eliminate comfort. Rest matters. Enjoyment matters. Recovery matters. Your goal is to prevent comfort from controlling decisions that deserve more thought. There will always be an easier option available. You become stronger by deciding which option deserves your time. Today, choose one important task and decide in advance where you will normally stop. Then create a small additional action that you will complete before leaving. Keep the extension reasonable. Observe your mind when it starts asking for comfort. You do not need to argue with it. Notice the feeling and continue with the action you already chose. Over time, these small decisions change your relationship with effort. You stop assuming that difficulty means something has gone wrong. You become better at judging discomfort. You become more willing to practice skills that make you feel inexperienced. You become less dependent on immediate pleasure before doing meaningful work. Push yourself with intelligence. Continue because the additional effort has a purpose. Rest when recovery is necessary. Change the method when the method is ineffective, but do not allow temporary comfort to make every important decision for you. The next time you feel the urge to stop, simply because the work has become uncomfortable, stay for a little longer and complete one useful part. That small choice is enough for today. Then use what you learned from it to make tomorrow's effort more deliberate. Chapter 9. Prove your commitment through repeated daily actions. Commitment becomes believable through behavior. A person can make a serious promise in the morning and forget it by evening. Another person may never speak about their goal but quietly work on it every day. The difference is not the quality of their words, it is the pattern of their actions. Your daily behavior gives you a more honest picture of your priorities than your intentions ever can. This is important because people often judge commitment by emotion. They feel strongly about a goal and assume that strong feelings mean they are committed. That feeling can be real, but it is not enough. Commitment becomes practical only when it changes what you do with your time. You may care deeply about improving your career, but the evidence appears in the hours you spend learning. You may want stronger finances, but the evidence appears in how you handle spending and saving. You may want better health, but the evidence appears in what you repeatedly do with your body. Look at your calendar before you look at your intentions. Your calendar shows where your time actually goes. A person may say that learning is important while spending every free hour on entertainment. Another may say that family matters most, but remain constantly distracted by work messages. This does not mean they are bad people. It means their actions and stated priorities are not fully aligned. That gap is useful information. Take one goal that matters to you and ask a practical question. What behavior would prove that this goal has a real place in my life? The answer should be something you can observe. Studying for 30 minutes is observable. Practicing a skill is observable. Saving a specific amount is observable. Preparing tomorrow's work is observable. Saying that you are serious is not an action. Once you identify the behavior, make it measurable. Measurement does not need to be complicated. You can count pages, you can record minutes, you can mark completed sessions, you can track completed assignments, you can record the number of days you followed a useful routine. The purpose is not to turn your life into numbers. The purpose is to remove uncertainty about what you actually did. There is a major difference between being busy and being committed. A busy person can spend 10 hours moving between tasks and still avoid the one activity that matters most. Commitment requires protected attention. You may have only 30 minutes available, but those 30 minutes can be directed toward the goal instead of being divided among messages, videos, unnecessary research, and unrelated tasks. Create a daily proof action. This is one small behavior that demonstrates your commitment to yourself. For your education, it could be completing one lesson. For writing, it could be producing a fixed number of useful words. For fitness, it could be completing the planned training session. For financial improvement, it could be checking your spending and following your planned limit. The action should be small enough to repeat and important enough to matter. Do not make the proof action so large that it becomes difficult to maintain. A commitment that requires perfect circumstances will be tested by ordinary life. Choose something that can survive busy days. Your larger work can happen when you have extra time, but the basic proof action keeps your goal active. There is another useful idea here. Repeated actions create a record that becomes difficult to argue with. You may have doubts about your ability. You may have days when you feel behind. You may compare yourself with someone who appears more advanced. Your record can bring you back to facts. You completed 20 study sessions. You practiced for 15 hours this month. You finished 4 important assignments. These facts do not guarantee success, but they show that you are participating in the process. This matters during periods of slow results. Results often appear later than effort. A person can practice a skill for weeks without seeing dramatic improvement. A person can save money for months before the amount feels significant. A person can train regularly while physical changes remain gradual. During these periods, your daily actions become important because they give you something immediate to evaluate. Do not demand visible results from every day's effort. Some days are for building capacity. Some are for correcting mistakes. Some are for maintaining what you already developed. You cannot judge the value of every action by what changed within 24 hours. A single study session may not transform your knowledge, but it can improve your understanding of one subject. A single workout may not change your body, but it can strengthen your training habit. Use weekly review instead of emotional daily judgment. At the end of 7 days, look at what you planned and what you completed. Ask what worked. Ask what failed. Ask what interrupted your actions. Ask whether the target was realistic. Then make one adjustment for the following week. This keeps improvement connected to evidence instead of mood. You should also examine the quality of your repeated actions. Repetition alone is not always enough. A person can repeat the same mistake for years. If you practice poor technique, you may reinforce poor technique. If you study without testing yourself, you may become familiar with the material without understanding it. If you work without reviewing your results, you may repeat inefficient methods. Add regular feedback to your commitment. After completing a task, spend a few minutes checking the result. Ask what you did well and what needs correction. A writer can review unclear sentences. A student can check incorrect answers. A salesperson can examine which conversations produced useful responses. A person working on finances can compare actual spending with the plan. Repeated action becomes more valuable when repeated action is followed by learning. Your commitment should also survive periods when nobody notices improvement. External recognition can be helpful, but it is unreliable. People may not notice your study hours. They may not see the money you chose not to spend. They may not know how many times you practiced. They may only notice the result later. Do not make your behavior dependent on being seen. This is especially important because visible success can create false comparisons. You see someone who has achieved something and only see their current position. You do not see every ordinary session that helped create it. You compare your unfinished process with another person's visible result. That comparison can weaken your commitment. Return your attention to your own daily evidence. A useful exercise is to keep a commitment scorecard for 30 days. Choose 3 behaviors that matter. Record whether each behavior happened. Keep the system simple. Do not rate your personality. Do not write whether you felt motivated. Record the behavior itself. At the end of the month, look for patterns. You might discover that you are excellent at morning habits but inconsistent at evening habits. You might find that your work improves when your phone is outside the room. You might notice that your performance drops after several nights of poor sleep. These observations are valuable because they show you where your system needs improvement. Do not use the scorecard to punish yourself. Use it like a coach studying performance. The purpose is to learn what produces reliable behavior. A low score does not mean you are incapable. It means your current approach needs attention. Maybe the target is too large. Maybe the timing is wrong. Maybe the environment creates too much friction. Maybe you have chosen too many goals at once. There is also value in protecting promises that seem too small to matter. Make your bed. Put your work materials away. Prepare tomorrow's clothes. Review your expenses. Read several pages. These actions can appear ordinary, but they give you practice in completing what you decided to complete. Your standards are developed through repeated choices that are often too small for other people to notice. Be careful about constantly changing your goal. New goals can create excitement because they give you a fresh beginning. You may decide to learn a new skill every few weeks. You may change your workout plan every month. You may start another course before finishing the previous one. This can create the feeling of activity without giving any single effort enough time to produce meaningful results. Give important commitments enough time to develop. Set a period during which you will follow the chosen behavior before evaluating whether you should replace it. The exact period depends on the goal, but the principle is simple. Do not judge a useful process after only a few uncomfortable days. Gather enough evidence to make a sensible decision. At the same time, do not continue a bad system simply because you started it. Commitment does not mean stubbornness. If the method produces no useful learning, change the method. If the schedule repeatedly conflicts with your responsibilities, adjust it. If your target is unrealistic, reduce it. Your commitment is to meaningful improvement, not to one specific method. There is a quiet confidence that develops from this kind of behavior. You stop needing to convince yourself that you are serious. You have records. You have completed sessions. You have corrected mistakes. You have continued during ordinary weeks. Your confidence becomes connected to evidence. That confidence is different from temporary excitement. Excitement says you feel ready today. Evidence says you have practiced enough times to know that you can continue. One depends on emotion, the other depends on experience. Experience is more dependable. Choose one important goal tonight and identify the smallest daily behavior that proves you are working toward it. Put that behavior into your schedule. Record each completion for the next 30 days. Review the record once each week. When something goes wrong, study the reason and adjust the process rather than abandoning the goal. Do not worry about making the behavior impressive. Make it real. A small action repeated with care can tell you more about commitment than a large promise made during an emotional moment. Your life changes through what receives your time repeatedly. Let your actions speak for the goals you say matter. Give them space in your day. Measure what you actually do. Improve the method when evidence tells you to change it. Continue long enough to see what repeated effort can produce. Your commitment becomes stronger each time your behavior matches your decision. Keep building that agreement through ordinary days, quiet work, honest measurement, and steady practice. Then use your next 30 days as a clear test of how much your daily actions can change when you stop relying on promises alone. Chapter 10. Become someone who does not quit easily. Quitting easily is rarely one large decision. It usually happens through a series of small choices that slowly convince you to stop. You delay one important task. You skip another practice session. You decide that the goal is taking too long. You become frustrated by slow results. Then one day, you tell yourself that the goal was never right for you. A stronger person learns to examine that decision before walking away. The ability to continue is not something you are simply born with. It can be developed through repeated experiences where you learn how to handle difficulty without making an immediate decision to quit. You become more persistent when you understand why you are struggling, what can be changed, and what still deserves your effort. Persistence is not refusing every change. It is refusing to abandon something valuable merely because the current experience has become difficult. Start by deciding what deserves long-term commitment. Not every goal deserves years of your life. Some plans become outdated. Some careers are no longer suitable. Some projects lose their purpose. Some methods prove ineffective. A person who never changes direction can waste enormous amounts of time. The goal is not to become stubborn. The goal is to become careful about quitting. Before leaving an important goal, examine 3 things. Ask whether the goal still matters. Ask whether your current method is working. Ask whether the difficulty is temporary or permanent. These questions prevent an emotional moment from making a permanent decision. You may discover that the goal remains important, but the method needs improvement. Consider someone learning a difficult professional skill. They have studied for several months and still make mistakes. The easy reaction is to conclude that they are not talented enough. A better response is to examine the errors. Which parts remain weak? Is there enough practice? Are they receiving useful feedback? Are they studying the right material? Are they practicing under realistic conditions? Persistence becomes much stronger when it is connected to problem solving. This is one of the biggest differences between productive persistence and blind repetition. Productive persistence includes adjustment. You continue the objective while improving the way you approach it. A student who repeatedly gets the same question wrong should not simply solve the same type of problem without reviewing the mistake. They should identify the missing concept and practice that specific weakness. Continuing without learning is not enough. You also need to understand that progress is rarely smooth. Some weeks will produce obvious improvement. Other weeks may seem almost unchanged. This can be frustrating because human attention naturally notices visible differences. Yet many important skills develop through gradual changes that are difficult to notice from one day to the next. A useful way to handle this is to compare yourself with your earlier performance rather than your ideal result. Look at your work from 3 months ago. Review an old piece of writing. Repeat an exercise you previously struggled with. Look at your earlier financial records. Revisit notes from when you first began learning. You may find evidence of improvement that daily observation could not show. Keep records that allow you to see this progress. Do not rely entirely on memory, because memory is strongly influenced by recent experiences. A difficult week can make you forget months of improvement. Written records provide a more balanced picture. Record completed work, practice hours, test results, savings, completed projects, or other measurable signs that fit your goal. There is another reason people quit. They confuse slow progress with no progress. Suppose your skill improves from very weak to slightly better. The difference may not feel exciting, but the direction matters. Small improvements accumulate when the behavior continues. A person who improves one specific part of a skill every week can become substantially better over a long period. Do not demand dramatic evidence every few days. Set review periods that match the nature of the goal. Physical training can be assessed over several weeks. Learning can be assessed through tests and practical performance. Financial habits can be reviewed monthly. Professional development may require longer periods. The correct review period helps you judge the process fairly. You should also learn how to handle criticism without allowing it to make your decisions. Someone may tell you that your work is poor. That can hurt. You may feel embarrassed or angry. Instead of immediately quitting, separate the emotional reaction from the useful information. Is the criticism specific? Can you verify it? Does it identify something you can improve? If the answer is yes, use it. Not every criticism deserves your attention. Some people speak without understanding your situation. Some opinions are based on personal preference. Some comments are designed to discourage rather than help. Persistence does not require accepting every judgment. It requires knowing which feedback can improve your work. Develop a small group of standards for your own performance. Decide what quality means for the goal. Decide how much effort is reasonable. Decide what evidence would tell you that improvement is happening. These standards give you something more stable than other people's reactions. There will also be periods when you become tired of the same goal. This is normal. Long projects contain emotional changes. At the beginning, you may feel excited. Later, the work becomes familiar. Then you may question whether it is worth continuing. You do not need to panic when that happens. Review the original reason for choosing the goal and examine whether that reason still exists. Sometimes the solution is not more effort, it is recovery. A person who has worked intensely for months may need a short break. Rest can protect long-term performance. The key is to define the break rather than allowing it to become an indefinite disappearance. Decide when you will review the goal again and what you will do during the recovery period. You can also use milestones instead of waiting for the final result. A large objective can take years. Smaller milestones give you useful points of evaluation. Complete the first course. Finish the first project. Reach the first savings target. Complete the first month of training. Learn the first set of skills. Each milestone gives you information about what comes next. Do not make every setback personal. A failed attempt does not automatically mean you are a failure. It means one attempt did not produce the desired result. Study the attempt. What assumption was wrong? What preparation was missing? What should change next time? The person who asks these questions can turn disappointment into information. There is a practical exercise you can use after any major setback. Write down exactly what happened without emotional language. Then write what you expected to happen. Compare the two. Identify the largest difference. Choose one adjustment, then schedule another attempt. This process keeps you connected to reality and prevents frustration from becoming the end of the project. You should also protect yourself from the desire to make everything easier immediately. Difficulty can reveal areas where you need more skill. Instead of removing every challenge, improve your ability to handle the challenge. Learn better methods. Ask for feedback. Practice the weak area. Organize your time. Improve your sleep. Remove unnecessary distractions. Get help when you need it. Strong persistence often comes from becoming better prepared rather than simply trying harder. There is a powerful lesson in asking for help. Some people think that continuing means handling everything alone. That belief can make persistence unnecessarily difficult. A teacher, coach, colleague, experienced friend, or qualified professional can help you identify mistakes that you cannot see. Asking for useful assistance is not quitting. It is a way of increasing your ability to continue intelligently. Your standards should also include honesty. Do not continue a goal simply because you already invested time in it. Past effort does not make a poor goal valuable. Look at what the goal can produce from this point forward. If the purpose remains strong and the path can be improved, continue. If the purpose has disappeared, changing direction may be responsible. This prevents two opposite mistakes. One is quitting too early because the process became difficult. The other is continuing for years because you are afraid to admit that the original decision was wrong. Strong judgment requires knowing the difference. Another useful skill is learning to work without immediate confirmation. You may not know whether today's effort will produce the result you want. You may not receive praise. You may not see improvement immediately. You still need enough confidence in your process to complete today's work. That confidence should come from evidence, preparation, and reasonable expectations rather than blind certainty. Build a personal rule for difficult moments. Do not make a major quitting decision while angry, exhausted, embarrassed, or deeply disappointed. Give yourself time to settle. Then review the facts. This simple rule can prevent temporary emotions from controlling long-term choices. You can also decide what conditions would justify stopping before the pressure becomes intense. For example, you may decide that a project should be reconsidered if the purpose changes significantly, the method remains ineffective after several serious adjustments, or the costs become unreasonable. Clear conditions create responsible flexibility. You are not trapped by pride, but you are also not controlled by temporary discomfort. Becoming someone who does not quit easily begins with changing what quitting means to you. Quitting should not be your first response to boredom, criticism, slow progress, or an early mistake. Those experiences deserve investigation. Sometimes the answer is to continue. Sometimes it is to adjust. Sometimes it is to rest. Sometimes it is to change direction. The important part is making the decision consciously. Your daily actions can strengthen this quality. Finish one difficult task before starting an easier one. Complete the last part of a project. Return to a skill after making a mistake. Review something you previously avoided because it was uncomfortable. Practice the weak area instead of only doing what you already do well. These actions create experience with staying engaged when the work is not pleasant. Do not wait for a major life challenge to practice persistence. Use ordinary responsibilities as training. Keep working on the report after the interesting part is finished. Complete the final exercise in your study session. Review your budget after an expensive week. Correct the mistake you made yesterday. Clean the workspace after completing the project. Small acts of completion strengthen your ability to remain responsible under less comfortable conditions. There will be moments when you genuinely want to stop. Take that feeling seriously enough to examine it, but not so seriously that you obey it immediately. Ask what is actually happening. Ask what can be improved. Ask whether the goal still deserves your effort. Ask what one more informed attempt would look like. Then make the decision based on evidence. A person who develops this habit becomes harder to discourage because difficulty no longer automatically produces surrender. They have learned how to inspect problems. They know how to change methods. They know how to recover. They know how to ask for help. They know how to measure progress. Most importantly, they know that one disappointing experience does not have to decide the future. Your commitment becomes meaningful when you can maintain it through ordinary frustration and intelligent change. Keep learning, keep correcting, Keep evaluating. Keep giving worthwhile goals enough time to produce evidence. Do not promise yourself that you will never quit anything. Make a better promise. Do not quit important things simply because they became uncomfortable. Give yourself enough time to understand the problem. Improve your method before judging your ability. Rest when recovery is necessary. Change direction only after honest evaluation. That is how you become dependable to yourself. Not through dramatic declarations, but through thousands of decisions where you choose patience over impulse, learning over frustration, and responsible action over immediate escape. Take one goal that still matters to you and write down the reason it deserves your effort. Then identify the biggest obstacle currently slowing you down and choose one specific response. Put that response into your next available work period. Your next action does not need to prove your entire future. It only needs to show that you are still willing to do the work intelligently. You have heard the lessons. Now the real work begins with what you do after this video ends. Force yourself to be consistent does not mean forcing yourself to be perfect. It means becoming the person who keeps moving forward even when the mood changes, the results are slow, or the day becomes difficult. You will miss days. You will feel tired. You will lose interest. You will make mistakes. None of these moments has to decide your future. What matters is how quickly you return, how honestly you correct yourself, and whether you keep your daily commitments. Do not try to change your entire life tomorrow. Choose one important habit, give it a specific time, keep the action simple, do it again the next day, then repeat it until keeping that promise becomes part of your normal life. Your confidence will grow when you have evidence that you can depend on yourself. So take one action today that your future self will respect. Then come back to this audiobook whenever your discipline feels weak. Listen again when you need to reset your standards, remember your reasons, and return to the work. If this message helped you, subscribe, share it with someone who needs stronger discipline, and leave a comment about the one habit you are committing to every day. Your next day does not need to be perfect. It needs to be consistent.